I'm Sarah Mitchell, 36 years old, and 3 weeks ago I was living what I thought was my dream life as the operations director of Mitchell & Co., our family's luxury home goods empire worth over $50 million. For 8 years, I sacrificed everything. Relationships, friendships, even my own happiness, believing that blood was thicker than water and that family always came first. Then came that Wednesday morning when I found myself sitting in a quiet bookstore cafe, hands trembling as I listened to a voicemail that would shatter everything I believed about loyalty and love. But here's the twist. What started as the most devastating betrayal of my life became the greatest gift I never knew I needed. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the people who hurt us the most end up teaching us the most valuable lessons about ourselves. Mitchell & Co. wasn't just a business. It was our family's religion, our identity, our everything. My father, David Mitchell, started with a single showroom in Denver back in 1988, curating high-end furniture and home decor that spoke to affluent homeowners who valued both style and substance. His innate ability to predict interior design, trends before they hit mainstream magazines, transformed one location into 7 within 6 years. My mother, Catherine, initially managed the financial side while raising 4 children, but her razor-sharp business instincts quickly elevated her to co-founder status and eventually the undisputed decision-maker. Growing up, I watched this power shift like a slow-motion earthquake, with my mother's influence expanding alongside our company's footprint. But wait, the real story is just beginning. Stay with me, because what happens next will show you exactly how family businesses can become battlegrounds, and you won't believe the chess move I made that nobody saw coming. Our childhood was anything but ordinary. While other kids spent summers at camp or lazy afternoons at the mall, the Mitchell children were learning profit margins and customer psychology in our showrooms. My 18th birthday wasn't celebrated with a party. Instead, I received my first quarterly report to analyse, complete with a deadline. My older sister, Jennifer, 3 years my senior, was clearly anointed as the golden child from day 1. Mother constantly praised her natural charisma and people skills, despite Jennifer's tendency to make impulsive decisions that I'd later have to fix behind the scenes. My younger brother, Thomas, couldn't handle the pressure and constant comparisons. At 24, he announced he wanted nothing to do with Mitchell & Co. and moved to Austin to pursue music production. The family treated his departure like a funeral, mentioning his name only in hushed, disappointed tones for months afterward. I chose a different strategy, convinced I could earn my place through sheer competence and dedication. I studied business at Northwestern, graduated summa cum laude, then spent 3 years working for an Italian luxury furniture importer to bring international perspective back to Mitchell & Co. When I returned at 29, the company had grown to 22, locations across the Mountain West, but was drowning in outdated systems. Our online presence was practically non-existent, and our inventory management was still largely paper-based. I immediately saw opportunities everywhere. Within 18 months of implementing my modernization strategies, we increased profits by 35%, expanded to 31 locations, and built a digital platform that generated 40% of our total revenue. Here's where the story takes a dark turn, because success in family business sometimes makes you a target rather than a hero. Keep watching, because the betrayal I'm about to describe will make your jaw drop. Despite these victories, my position in the family hierarchy remained frozen in time. When Dad's multiple sclerosis began affecting his daily involvement, Mother seamlessly assumed the CEO role, while I handled most of the operational heavy lifting as operations director. Jennifer held the title of creative director, which primarily involved attending design shows and making ceremonial appearances at store openings. The ownership structure reflected decades of family politics. Mother controlled 50%. I had managed to secure 35% through Dad's support. Before his condition deteriorated, and Jennifer held 15%. Every success came with a hidden cost. Strategic meetings often ended with Mother dismissing my data-driven recommendations with comments like, "That might work for some corporate chain, but this is a family business built on relationships and intuition." When I brought in qualified, Professionals to strengthen our management team, Jennifer would privately express concerns to Mother about outsiders not understanding our family values. Despite these frustrations, I remained completely devoted to Mitchell & Co. I turned down lucrative offers from major home goods retailers, declined a private equity firm's offer to become their retail consultant, and repeatedly postponed personal relationships. I convinced myself that the business justified these sacrifices, that eventually my contributions would be fully recognized, and that family loyalty would ultimately triumph over petty politics. But I was living in a fantasy, and reality was about to hit me like a freight train. What happens next will show you just how far family members will go to protect their own interests, even at the cost of destroying each other. The first major crack appeared after I spearheaded a collaboration with a renowned Scandinavian design house that landed us a feature spread in Architectural Digest and generated our highest revenue quarter in company history. During the celebration dinner, Mother raised a toast praising our incredible creative team and their vision, without mentioning my 18 months of relationship building and contract negotiations. When design magazines requested interviews, Mother insisted on being the sole spokesperson, reducing my role to team effort status in all press releases. The slight stung deeply, but I rationalised it as Mother's generational approach to leadership. My intuition screamed warnings when our executive team met to discuss expansion into the Pacific Northwest market. I had spent months preparing a comprehensive analysis of the Seattle market, including demographic studies, location scouting reports, and revenue projections based on our successful expansion patterns. 10 minutes into my presentation, Jennifer interrupted with a completely different proposal for Portland, complete with glossy renderings but minimal financial backing. Mother immediately shifted the conversation to Jennifer's concept, saying, "This feels more aligned with the Mitchell brand essence." They approved her plan without allowing me to finish my presentation. 8 months later, the Portland location was hemorrhaging money, with operating costs nearly triple what the market could sustain. During an emergency financial review, Jennifer blamed the failure on inadequate operational support, indirectly pointing fingers at my department. When I presented documentation, showing I had raised concerns about the lease terms from the beginning, Mother accused me of keeping records to assign blame rather than working collaboratively towards solutions. The next board meeting became the point of no return, and what happened there will show you exactly how family loyalty evaporates when money and power are at stake. Quarterly numbers were down 18%, primarily due to the Portland disaster and a poorly executed inventory. System Jennifer had insisted on implementing against my explicit recommendations. When our CFO, one of the few executives I had personally recruited, presented the financial impact of these decisions, Jennifer exploded. "This is what happens when we let corporate thinking override family business wisdom." I couldn't remain silent. "The definition of insanity is repeating the same mistakes while expecting different results," I said calmly. "We've ignored data-driven recommendations for 4 quarters straight, and our performance reflects exactly that." Mother's eyes turned to ice. "That's enough, Sarah. Your sister is pursuing innovative approaches while you're trapped in spreadsheets and analytics. Not everything can be reduced to numbers." The chill in our relationship spread far beyond the boardroom. Mother began systematically excluding me from critical meetings, scheduling them during my client appointments, or simply forgetting to include me in calendar invites. My weekly one-on-one sessions with her were repeatedly cancelled due to more urgent priorities. Even casual family dinners became minefields of passive-aggressive comments and meaningful glances. But here's what I didn't know. While I was trying to repair our relationship, they were already planning my elimination. What I discovered next will shock you. The company's annual leadership retreat in Vail became the warning shot I should have taken more seriously. I arrived a day late due to finalising a crucial vendor contract, only to discover that Mother and Jennifer had already conducted multiple planning sessions with the executive team. The strategic vision document they had drafted significantly reduced my department's authority and budget while expanding Jennifer's creative division. When I questioned this directly, Mother smiled coldly and said, "We thought you'd appreciate us handling strategic planning while you were occupied with operational details." That evening, While searching for a presentation file on the company's shared server, I stumbled upon a confidential folder labelled Organizational Restructuring 2025. Inside were draft organizational charts showing my position essentially eliminated, with my direct reports reassigned to a new department under Jennifer's control. The document properties showed Mother as the creator, last modified just 3 days earlier. Lying awake in my hotel room that night, staring at the mountain silhouettes against the starlit sky, I finally acknowledged what my heart had been denying. Despite owning 35% of Mitchell & Co., I was being systematically erased from the very business I had helped modernize and grow. The question was no longer if this would happen, but when and how they would execute their plan, and whether I would let family loyalty override my self-preservation when they made their move. The final phase of their betrayal began during negotiations that would change everything. Stay with me, because the next part of this story involves a level of deception that will leave you speechless. It started during negotiations with Maison Dubois, a prestigious French luxury goods company interested in creating an exclusive collection for Mitchell & Co. I had cultivated this relationship for nearly 2 years, leveraging connections from my time working with Italian designers. We were 10 days from signing a deal that would have positioned us as the exclusive North American distributor for their new line, a partnership that could have generated $15 million in additional annual revenue. One Wednesday morning, my assistant looked visibly uncomfortable as she handed me my daily schedule. "There might be an error," I said, noticing an empty slot where the Dubois call should have been. "Isn't the final negotiation at 2 o'clock? She fidgeted nervously with her tablet. "Your mother asked me to tell you it's been postponed." Something in her expression made me press further. "Postponed until when?" After an uncomfortable pause, she admitted, "I believe your mother and Jennifer are speaking with them right now in the executive conference room." I walked deliberately to the conference room, my pulse thundering in my ears. Through the glass walls, I saw Mother and Jennifer laughing with Philippe Dubois, the company's North American director, who had specifically requested to work exclusively with me based on our previous professional relationship. Mother noticed me standing outside and briefly stepped out. "We've got this under control, Sarah," she said, barely cracking the door open. Philippe wanted to discuss some concerns about the collection parameters, and I felt senior leadership should address them directly. "I built this relationship over 2 years," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "I should be part of any discussion about concerns." Mother's expression hardened. "You're being emotional again. This is exactly why Jennifer needs to take the lead on sensitive negotiations. Your personal attachment to projects clouds your business judgment. What I discovered next about their manipulation will make you question everything you think you know about family, loyalty. This is where the story gets really intense. The systematic dismantling of my role accelerated rapidly after that incident. Critical emails to my team went mysteriously unanswered until I discovered Mother had instructed them to copy her on all communications with me. Key staff members were transferred to different departments without consultation. My office was relocated, from the executive floor to a smaller space near the warehouse during a weekend when I was visiting Dad, explained as optimizing space utilization for better workflow. One afternoon, I spotted Harrison Wells, the company's longtime legal counsel, leaving Mother's office with a thick folder of documents. When he saw me, he quickly averted his eyes and hurried toward the elevator. My access to certain financial systems was revoked for security protocol updates that somehow never affected other executives. The walls were closing in, but I wasn't ready to surrender without exploring my options. I reached out to Margaret Foster, Dad's former business mentor who had retired 5 years earlier. We met for lunch at a small restaurant far from any Mitchell & Cubs locations. "Your father always worried about this exact scenario," Margaret confided, after hearing my situation. "Catherine's brilliant with business strategy, but she views control as absolutely non-negotiable. David insisted you get that 35% stake because he feared precisely what's happening now." "What would you do in my position?" I asked. Her eyes reflected years of business wisdom. "Document everything meticulously, Prepare for multiple scenarios, and remember that sometimes winning doesn't mean getting your way. It means protecting your value and your dignity. Following her advice led me to discover something that would change the entire game. What I found out next will show you why knowledge truly is power in family business warfare. Taking Margaret's counsel, I began systematically documenting every instance of exclusion and undermining. I backed up crucial emails and records of my contributions to company growth. I discreetly consulted with a business valuation expert about the true worth of my ownership stake, and what I learned was eye-opening. In a final attempt to salvage both family relationships and my professional position, I invited Mother and Jennifer to dinner at Dad's favourite steakhouse, hoping the sentimental location might create space for honest conversation. The evening started cordially with reminiscences about Dad's early days building the business, but when I gently addressed recent changes, Mother's demeanour instantly transformed. "I'm disappointed that you're taking business decisions so personally," she said, cutting her steak with surgical precision. "Your father and I raised you to be resilient, not to complain when strategic changes don't favour you." "This isn't about my feelings," I countered. "It's about transparency and respect. I own 35% of this company, but I'm being treated like a disposable employee." Jennifer scoffed. "There's more to running Mitchell & Co. than profit margins and digital metrics, Sarah. Some aspects require intuition and relationship skills you've never quite developed." The dinner ended with tense goodbyes and zero resolution. The next morning, through a conversation with my most trusted team member, I learned that an emergency board meeting had been scheduled for the following Friday. The agenda wasn't shared widely, but my source had overheard Jennifer discussing a leadership consolidation initiative with one of the board members who consistently supported Mother's decisions. Here's where everything changes. What happened next turned me from victim to victor in a way that nobody, especially my family, saw coming. That life-changing Wednesday started positively. I had just concluded a promising meeting with Apex Retail Solutions, a technology company interested in developing a custom inventory management platform for luxury home goods retailers. Their CEO had specifically sought me out based on an article I'd written for Home Goods Business Weekly about integrating online and physical store operations. The potential partnership could have revolutionized our logistics and positioned Mitchell and Cuppers as an industry innovator. Energized by the successful meeting, I stopped at Cornerstone Books and Coffee, a cozy independent bookstore 4 blocks from our headquarters, to review my notes before returning to the office. The peaceful atmosphere, with its exposed brick walls and the comforting scent of fresh coffee and old books, had always been my thinking retreat during challenging work periods. I ordered my usual oat milk cappuccino and settled into a leather armchair in the quiet corner when my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. The moment I heard Mother's voice, something in her tone made my stomach plummet. "Sarah, this is your mother," she began formally, as if I wouldn't recognise her voice after 36 years. "The executive committee convened this morning and has unanimously decided that your position as operations director is no longer viable for Mitchell & Co. Your resistance to our strategic vision and persistent undermining of leadership decisions leaves us no alternative. You're out of the family business. Expect contact from our legal counsel regarding your departure terms. Your building access has been deactivated immediately. Please coordinate with human resources for personal belongings retrieval." But here's what they didn't expect. I had been preparing for this exact moment. What I did next will show you why sometimes the best revenge is simply being smarter than your enemies. The message continued without warmth. "This is strictly a business decision, not a family matter. I expect you to handle it with professionalism that honours the Mitchell name." The voicemail ended without even a goodbye. My hands shook so violently that coffee spilled over my notebook pages. The bookstore's ambient noise faded to a distant hum as years of sacrifice flashed through my mind. The countless 80-hour work weeks, the job offers I'd declined from competitors who would have tripled my salary, the relationships I'd postponed, the family vacation I'd cancelled to handle Jennifer's Portland crisis, the New Year's Eve I'd spent reconciling year-end finances because Jennifer's rushed deadlines had created accounting errors. But instead of breaking down, something unexpected happened. A strange calm settled over me as I realized that this moment had been inevitable for months. They had given me the ultimate gift, complete freedom from their toxic game. I made 3 phone calls from that bookstore chair, each one setting in motion a plan that would forever alter the power dynamics at Mitchell & Co. My first call was to Sterling Equity Partners, a private investment firm that had approached me 6 months earlier about acquisition opportunities in the luxury home goods sector. Their managing partner, Victoria Chen, had given me her direct number, mentioning they were always interested in established retail brands with growth potential and strong leadership. "I'm not calling about a complete buyout," I clarified after explaining my situation. "I'm exploring strategic options for my 35% stake." Victoria's interest was immediate. "That's a substantial minority position with significant leverage potential. Can you meet this afternoon?" My second call would shock them even more. What I did next proves that in business, relationships matter more than bloodlines. My second call was to Alexander Morrison, Dad's longtime friend and competitor who owned Morrison Home Collections, a luxury furniture chain with locations primarily in California and Arizona. Dad and Alexander had maintained a respectful rivalry for decades, occasionally meeting for golf, despite being direct competitors. Alexander answered immediately, his warm voice instantly recognizable. "Sarah Mitchell, how wonderful to hear from Mio. You. How's David holding up?" The genuine concern in his voice when I updated him about Dad's condition reminded me of when business relationships had authentic human dimensions. When I explained my situation, Alexander's response was immediate and decisive. "Those idiots! You were the best thing that happened to that company in decades. Catherine always prioritized control over growth." His directness was refreshing after years of navigating Mother's manipulative communication patterns. "I've been looking for Mountain West expansion opportunities," he continued. "Acquiring a significant stake in Mitchell & Cohen's would give us immediate market presence and access to your vendor relationships." My third call was to Emma Rodriguez, a corporate attorney specializing in family business disputes. "Based on what you've described, they're hoping emotional manipulation will pressure you into a panic sale below market value," she explained after hearing my story. "They've calculated that your family attachment will make you vulnerable to accepting less than your shares are worth. But here's what they don't realize. Your 35% gives you enormous strategic value to the right buyer. What happened over the next 48 hours will show you exactly why preparation meets opportunity in the most unexpected ways." Within hours, I had meetings scheduled with both Sterling Equity and Alexander Morrison, plus 2 additional potential buyers Emma had suggested. Each meeting required careful preparation to demonstrate the true strategic value of my stake. I gathered financial reports, growth projections, and market analysis, all documents I had fortunately backed up on my personal cloud storage. The negotiations became a carefully orchestrated 48-hour marathon. I met with Victoria from Sterling Equity at a downtown hotel conference room, where she brought their retail analyst and legal team. Their offer was solid, but included complicated future governance structures. Alexander Morrison flew in personally on his private jet, meeting me for dinner at an elegant restaurant outside the city. His proposition was more straightforward: a clean purchase at premium valuation, with the strategic benefit of gaining major influence in a direct competitor. 2 other potential buyers couldn't match either offer. Throughout negotiations, I insisted on ironclad confidentiality agreements from all parties. The last thing I needed was news reaching Mother before deals were finalized. Emma reviewed every document, highlighting potential issues and suggesting strategic modifications to protect my interests. The emotional weight of what I was about to do hit me during quiet moments between meetings, but what I realized next changed everything about how I viewed family loyalty. By Friday evening, exactly 48 hours after receiving Mother's voicemail, I had made my decision. Alexander Morrison's offer exceeded Sterling's by 15% and included fewer complications. More importantly, there was poetic justice in selling my shares to Dad's biggest competitor, a company that would bring fresh perspectives and challenge the stagnant thinking Mother and Jennifer had been clinging to. The signing meeting took place in Emma's office. As Alexander and I finalised documents transferring my 35% stake in Mitchell & Co., he shook my hand firmly. Your father would be proud of your business acumen, Sarah, and frankly, I'd offer you a position in a heartbeat if you're interested. I thanked him, but explained I needed time to consider my next steps. The transfer confirmation appeared in my email at 6:23 p.m. on Friday. Within minutes, as the transaction would be automatically flagged in the company's financial system, I sent a single text to Mother. Understood. But here's the twist that will blow your mind. My strategic response was just getting started. What happened next proves that sometimes the best way to win is to completely change the rules of the game. That evening, I arranged to visit Mitchell & Cove headquarters during off hours when the executive floor would be empty. The security guard, who had known me since I joined the company, looked confused when his system showed my access had been revoked. Must be a computer glitch, Ms. Mitchell, he said, using his master key to let me in. The office that had been my second home for 8 years now felt like a museum of broken promises. I efficiently packed personal items into 3 boxes: family photos, industry awards, the leather portfolio Dad gave me when I became operations director, reference books, and a few meaningful items from team celebrations. I deliberately left, behind the plaque from our successful rebranding campaign and several framed articles featuring Mitchell & Co.'s growth under my leadership. As I placed my office keys and company credit card on the desk, a strange lightness replaced the heaviness that had been crushing me for months. Whatever happened next was no longer my responsibility or concern. Before leaving, I sent a brief professional email to my former team members, thanking them for their dedication without mentioning departure circumstances. Many would soon be navigating significant changes as news of the ownership shift became public. The final step in my strategic response was booking a month-long stay at a wellness retreat in Costa Rica. The transaction funds would take several days to clear, and I wanted complete physical and emotional distance when the inevitable fallout began. As my red-eye flight took off Saturday evening, I switched my phone to airplane mode with a profound sense of having reclaimed control over my life for the first time in years. What happened while I was disconnected from the world will show you exactly how quickly family loyalty transforms into panic when money and power are threatened. The Costa Rican morning sun filtered through tropical foliage as I sipped fresh pineapple juice on my villa terrace, overlooking the Pacific Ocean and listening to howler monkeys in the distance. After 4 days of yoga, meditation, and intentional disconnection from technology, I finally turned my phone back on. The cascade of notifications was immediate and overwhelming. 89 missed calls, 163 text messages, 42 voicemails, and over 300 emails. The missed calls told a story of escalating desperation: 21 from Mother in increasing frequency, 27 from Jennifer, several from board members, executives, and company lawyers. The first voicemail from Mother, time-stamped just 4 hours after my understood text, maintained her business-like composure. Sarah, we need to discuss transition logistics for your departure. Call me immediately. By the 7th voicemail, recorded the following morning, her composure had completely cracked. What have you done? The system is showing ownership transfer paperwork. This is insane. But the most revealing development came around day 6 of my retreat, and what it showed me about my family will make you reconsider everything you think you know about blood, being thicker than water. After dozens of increasingly frantic messages, Mother finally sent an email with a completely different tone. Sarah, I realise we may have handled things poorly. The business is struggling without your operational expertise. Jennifer is overwhelmed, and your father is confused and distressed by recent events. Please consider returning to discuss rebuilding on whatever terms make sense for everyone. The manipulation was transparent, invoking Dad's condition to trigger guilt, offering vague promises without specific acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and prioritising business impact over relationship repair. 8 months earlier, this approach might have worked. Now, from the peaceful distance of my Costa Rican retreat, I could see it clearly. Another attempt at control, not genuine reconciliation. I forwarded the email to Emma without responding. Mothers. Next strategy was predictably manipulative. She enlisted family friends and respected business associates to reach out on her behalf. Our longtime family attorney called, speaking carefully. I'm not officially representing your mother, but as someone who's known you since childhood, I wanted to check if there's any possibility for resolution. I maintained polite but firm boundaries with all intermediaries. I'm taking time to consider my future direction. I appreciate your concern, but this situation isn't open for negotiation right now. The attempted manipulation through my father was the most difficult to navigate, but what I discovered about his true feelings will surprise you. Jennifer sent a photo of Dad looking confused and upset, claiming he was asking for me constantly. This targeted my one remaining vulnerable spot. My relationship with Dad had always been special, and weaponizing his condition felt particularly cruel. I arranged a private video call with Dad's caregiver when Mother and Jennifer would be at the office. Seeing his familiar face, now softened, by illness but still with the kind eyes I remembered, brought immediate tears. They tell me you sold your part of the company, he said, his words slightly slurred, but his mind clearer than I expected. I did, Dad. They pushed me out. His expression showed more comprehension than I anticipated. I always knew Catherine was too controlling for everyone's good. You'll build something better, sweetheart. Those words from the man who started it all felt like permission to move forward without guilt. By the second week of my retreat, something unexpected was happening that proved my decision had been absolutely right. The frenzy of communication had settled into steady updates and inquiries. Business publications had moved on to other stories. Mitchell & Co. announced a strategic reorganization that industry insiders recognized as damage control. Alexander Morrison called once to assure me the transition was proceeding smoothly and to renew his job offer, which I politely deferred pending further consideration. This unexpected freedom from constant crisis management allowed me to reflect on what I truly wanted next. The financial security from the sale meant I could choose my path deliberately rather than rushing into another position out of necessity. Industry reaction to my departure confirmed what I had suspected. My contributions had been far more valuable than my family acknowledged. This wasn't about vindication, it was about clarity. I hadn't been the problem. As the third week of my retreat began, I felt ready to re-engage with the world on my own terms. But what I discovered about rebuilding relationships will teach you everything about setting healthy boundaries. My time in Costa Rica became the healing sanctuary I never knew I needed. Each morning began with sunrise yoga overlooking the ocean, followed by journaling that gradually transformed from processing anger to exploring possibilities. The retreat's wellness director, a wise former therapist named Isabella, guided me through specific techniques for releasing betrayal and rebuilding self-trust. Family wounds cut deepest, she observed during one session, because they live in our foundation. But foundations can be reinforced and rebuilt even after significant damage. On my final day in Costa Rica, I made the decision to return Jennifer's calls, the only family contact I felt ready to establish. Our first conversation was predictably difficult, with her emotions swinging between resentment and regret. You could have talked to us instead of selling to our biggest competitor, she accused. Like Mother talked to me before firing me via voicemail. I responded calmly. After the initial defensiveness faded, something unexpected happened. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, Jennifer spoke with complete honesty. I've always been terrified of failing, she admitted. You made everything look so effortless, the analysis, the strategy, the execution. Mother kept pushing me into bigger roles I wasn't ready for, telling me I needed to prove myself quickly before Dad's condition worsened. Every time you succeeded, I felt more inadequate. This vulnerable admission opened a door to understanding that I never expected, and what Jennifer revealed next will show you how toxic family dynamics can poison everyone involved. Jennifer acknowledged how Mother had methodically created competition between us, praising me to Jennifer's face while criticizing me behind closed doors, then doing the reverse with me. She's always needed to be the central power broker, Jennifer explained. When you started gaining real influence with the board and vendors. She panicked about losing control. The voicemail wasn't even her original plan. She wanted to gradually reduce your authority until you left voluntarily. I listened without interrupting, as years of family dynamics finally made sense. The day after you sold your shares, she locked herself in Dad's study for hours, Jennifer continued. When she came out, she looked completely defeated. She kept saying, "She outmaneuvered me completely." There was a hint of admiration in her retelling that suggested I had finally earned Mother's respect, if not her affection, through the very act of leaving. After returning to Seattle, what I chose to do next will show you exactly how to rebuild your life on your own terms after family betrayal. I declined multiple invitations to visit Mitchell & Co. offices. Instead, I rented a beautiful loft downtown and began consulting with family-owned businesses on succession planning and conflict resolution. The irony wasn't lost on me. My painful experience had created expertise that others found invaluable. 8 months after my departure, Mitchell & Co.'s announced major restructuring. Alexander Morrison hadn't attempted a hostile takeover as Mother feared. Instead, he brought professional management practices the company desperately needed, while respecting its established brand identity. Quarterly earnings had stabilized, and several of my abandoned initiatives had been implemented under new leadership. My relationship with Thomas deepened into the supportive adult-sibling relationship we'd never experienced growing up. We established a monthly tradition of weekend visits, alternating between his Austin home and my Seattle loft. The most unexpected development came nearly a year after my departure, and what happened will show you that sometimes people can change, but only on their own terms. Mother requested a meeting at a neutral location, the botanical garden Dad loved visiting. I agreed with clear boundaries, bringing Thomas as support. Mother arrived alone, looking noticeably aged but impeccably dressed as always. Her opening words surprised me. "I've been working with a therapist. She's helped me recognize that I might have some control issues." The understatement was so absurd that all three of us laughed, breaking the tension immediately. What followed wasn't complete reconciliation, but the beginning of a more authentic relationship. "I won't pretend to approve of how you handled your departure," she said, "but I respect that you protected yourself effectively. Your father always said you were the most like me, too stubborn for anyone's good." "I'm not interested in being like anyone but myself anymore," I replied. The conversation didn't heal decades of complicated dynamics, but it opened possibilities that hadn't existed before, relating to each other as adults with separate identities, rather than extensions of predetermined family roles. Today, 3 years after that life-changing voicemail, here's what I want you to understand about family, loyalty, and self-respect. My consulting practice now helps family business owners create healthier succession plans and avoid the destructive patterns that nearly destroyed our family. I serve on boards of 3 home goods companies that value my experience and insights. I've established boundaries with my family that allow for relationships without enmeshment or manipulation. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the quietest response, like my single-word understood text, speaks volumes when backed by decisive strategic action. What I originally perceived as the greatest betrayal became the catalyst for building an authentic life aligned with my values rather than others' expectations. For anyone facing similar family business challenges, remember this. Ownership takes many forms. Yes, shares in a company matter, but also ownership of your choices, your worth, and your future. Sometimes the people who push us away give us exactly what we need, the freedom to discover who we really are when we're not trying to earn their approval. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If this resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and building the life you deserve. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey from devastation to triumph. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, it's determined by how you choose to treat yourself.